how much did the flying doctors cost? How do you get your bike home? Motorcycle insurance grey area and other information you might be curious about. Okay, so in this video I'm simply retelling the story of my crash and sharing some information that you might be curious about or that you just want to listen along to. Now of course I'm not claiming to have all the answers here. I'm just sharing some information that I learnt along the way. If you've been in a similar sort of situation, please share your experience in the comments below as well. Okay, first up, let's figure out how bad my crash was. Now, a bad day on the bike is that you're in remote Australia, you're solo, and you're unconscious. That is a really bad day on the bike. Now, this video is not at that level of severity. On the opposite side of the scale, you've just had a Gumby crash, you've picked yourself up, you've dusted yourself off, and you keep going. My crash was somewhere in the middle. Now, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. But I'm not trying to oversell this crash for clickbait. It's just, it is what it is. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. Okay, so to clarify, I was in regional South Australia, not remote South Australia. So that's a massive difference and also a massive advantage in my favour. Now, my only injury was a broken wrist, which meant I still could walk around. Another good thing in my favour considering the crash. I was, however, 1,500 k's away from home with an unrideable bike and a broken wrist. So here are my thoughts. What do I do now? How do I get medical help? What happens to my bike and gear? How do I even get home? What about work? What about the household finances? All very important questions. But first, obviously, after a crash, not go to the hospital. If you've watched my previous videos, then if you crash in the middle of the sticks, the first thing you need to do is call Mick. Mick is an absolute legend and he'll sort everything out for you. Thanks again, Mick. If you're watching, I really appreciate everything you did. If you haven't heard the story, then watch the previous video and you'll find out just how awesome Mick is. Okay, seriously though, if you have a crash, the first thing you need to do is get help or help yourself, get help, set off your EPIRB, your spot tracker, call someone on your sat phone. Now, again, what I said earlier, being in regional South Australia, I had a passerby, Peter, stop within a minute and he helped out straight away. So I really want you to pay attention to the next part of this video and in particular, listen to the very first thing that Peter says.
How you going, mate? You right?
How are you? You got phone service or? I haven't even checked. It just happened. So.
Oh right.
Do you have reception? Now, Pete's a local who lives, breathes and works on the land. And the first thing that he said was, do you have reception? So that's the first takeaway point from this video. Don't take it from me, literally take it from a local. So you need to be able to contact the outside world. And from now on, I'm going to carry a sat phone on all trips. I do carry an EPIRB, but EPIRBs do have their limitations and I'll talk more about EPIRBs later on. Okay, so now that you've contacted the outside world, help's on the way. There's a few things that you need to remember and three things in particular. One, get your GPS coordinates. Make sure you know where you are. Drop a pin on Google Maps, take some screenshots, take a photo of the street signs or crossroads, just so you know where you are for logistics later on. That helps immensely. Second of all, get the phone numbers of anyone that you've had contact with. It's, again, good for logistics later on, and also it's good manners later on, which I'll explain later on. And the third thing is something I call my green go bag, which I've never really explained before in my videos, but it's just a Woolies bag that happens to be green, but I call it my green go bag because in the event of a crash, you need these simple things to carry with you. Your phone charger, toiletries, undies, wallet, house keys, and anything that's going to help you over the next few days as you hop in and out of hospital, and also the things you need to get home as well. And of course, your hard drives for all of us influencers out there. That is a real shit word. Can I just say that is probably the shittest word in the English vocabulary. So for all us YouTubers or people who simply just want to make these videos, you need your hard drives as well, because when you're recovering back home and you're bored out of your brain at home, it gives you something to do. Okay, so you've had a crash, you're amped up on adrenaline, you're amped up on emotions, you're trying to get your bearings, where everything is, what's going on. When I saw the bike, and I saw the front rim, and I noticed that it was The initial shock was, as expected, there's nothing. What else are you going to say? Literally, you're going to look at the front rim and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is... it's funny because 10 seconds later, I had this incredible weight release off my shoulders, because once I saw how bad the bike was, I realised then that there's nothing I can do for the bike. Like the bike's cactus. There is literally nothing I'm going to do. Just leave it here. Now I can focus all my energy on me getting to the hospital, getting the help I need and getting better. So in a way, it was a pretty good realisation that the bike's gone, leave it and focus on me. Okay, so now I'm ready to go to hospital, and luckily Pete was there to take me to the hospital. Now, I will say that Pete is the man, and I'll tell you why, because I've got a real funny story to tell. That when we arrived at hospital, I didn't get any of this on video, but as we walked into the hospital and walked into reception, Pete walks in and says, "G'day, Bronwyn." And she says, "Oh, Pete, what are you doing here?" He goes, "Oh, I found this bloke on the side of the road." Now, you can imagine, because I'm dealing with this crash, what I'm going to do about the bike, what I'm going to do about work, the household finances, all that sort of stuff. So when you have this funny conversation, and the way they said it to each other, it really dropped the stress levels for me in particular as well. Now, I've got to say, Pete's the man. He knew where the hospital was. He knew how to get there. He knew the people in the hospital. He knew the farmer whose paddock I crashed into. So Pete called him and said, "Mate, there's a bike in your paddock. Can you grab your tractor and come and get it?" Which he did. So within an hour of arriving at the hospital, I had painkillers, I was under the care of the nurses, and I got a text message from Mick to say that the bike was safe, all was secure, and he sent me a photo of the bike in the shed next to a harvester. So I thought that was quite funny, actually, and like I said, it just dropped the stress levels and made everything a touch easier, knowing that I could focus on myself and getting myself all the help that I needed. Just for a split second, just imagine if I was in remote Australia. Everything gets turned upside down from here, and you just think, within an hour, I probably wouldn't even had any assistance arrive to me. So that's for another story. Well, hopefully another story. I don't want to have this conversation again. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is what I call hospital yo-yo. You are going to be, especially when you're in regional and even more so remote Australia, you're going to be in and out of a number of hospitals to get to the appropriate help that you need. Now, in my case, it was 4 hospitals. It started at Bullaroo Hospital. Now, they were lovely. They gave me the painkillers, initial x-rays, but that's all they could do, really. And they called a volunteer driver, a lovely old man, Lyle, who took me to the next bigger hospital, Port Pirie. And from there, they realigned my wrist in the first procedure, but again, that's all that Port Pirie could do. And then I needed to get to the Royal Adelaide Hospital, the 3rd hospital in this journey so far. Now, the nurse said to me, she goes, "All right, that's no problem, we'll get you on the flying doctors." Now, the blood must have drained from my face, because she saw, as soon as she said that, she saw that I was like, "Oh shit, how much is this going to cost?" And she said straight away that, "Look, this is going to be expensive, but it's at no cost to you." I was like, whoa. So as you can imagine, I just thought, wow, okay, that's awesome. And if I remember the conversation, obviously I've got painkillers and I'm amped up on emotions and all sorts of stuff. So my headspace wasn't in the right place. But I kind of remember the nurse saying that the RFDS are going to bill, or they're going to invoice South Australia Health. So someone is going to pay for it. It's not going to be us. It's not going to be us as adventure riders, but or anyone who needs the help. Which is, let's be honest, that's just an incredible thing that they offer. Imagine you get a flight in a plane from the middle of Whoop Whoop to the closest hotel for the help that you need at no expense to you. Can I just say, what a great place we live in, and what an absolutely awesome thing the flying doctors are in these situations. So having said that, I grabbed my green go bag and I made my way to the airport in the middle of the night. And I do have to say that stepping out of the ambulance onto the tarmac with the flying doctors plane in front of me, all lit up by the airport lighting in the middle of the night, it was a very surreal experience. And it was at this point here where the reality of what's happening hit me, and I just thought, yeah, I've well and truly up here big time. It was a very humbling thing. You never want to crash a bike and get to this level of help, but it was very humbling. And the thing is, what made the whole thing better as well is that they were awesome. You kind of feel like saying, look, I'm sorry about everything that's happened, and they say, no, you're keeping us in a job. So it's this really awkward conversation, but a good conversation if you want to call it that. But knowing that there were two people that were critical on board made me realise that, yeah, even though this is a realisation of how bad I stuffed up, it's not that bad in the grand scheme of things. I'm going to get better, I'll fix the bike and everything's going to be okay. Now I will say, even with the realisation of what's going on and how heavy this is, I've got to say that the Flying Doctors experience was a bit of a highlight for me too. Once I got over that shock factor of I'm about to get on a Flying Doctors plane, I then started asking the nurse about, oh, what's your rosters like? How many sectors do you do in a night or in a day, in a shift? And she said, oh, look, for someone who's banged themselves up on a motorbike, you're pretty you're pretty excited to be here. And I said, yeah, it's a bit of a highlight. I work in aviation. I've been in aviation for 15 years, so a self-confessed plane geek as well. And it ended up being a bit of a highlight. Now that I look back at everything, it's a bit of a highlight as well, being on the Flying Doctors. Okay, so let's talk about the Flying Doctors and how bloody awesome they are. Now, a bit of a side note though, when I showed my son the video of me getting on the Flying Doctors plane, I wanted to just show you how differently kids see things to adults. Now, I'm thinking of the crash, my injuries, the bike, how do I get my bike home, etc., etc. From a kid's perspective, the first thing that he sees when I showed him the video is the silly face that's on the primary flight display. So it goes to show you, kids see things differently, and sometimes you really need that just to bring yourself down and realise, yeah, things aren't that bad. So I've got to say thanks to my son for that one. For my regular viewers, you know I'm a massive fan of the RFDS. It's part of my pre-trip preparation is to make a donation before every single trip. Now, one of my regular viewers, Slug Racing, he made an awesome comment, probably the comment of the whole video series, because it really hit home. You collected on all your donations. Now that is so very true. It was never my intention, but so very true. Okay, so once I was in Adelaide, I was seen to by the doctors and they told me that I couldn't be operated on for a few days because of the long weekend. I then made my way back to Sydney, and I do remember the nurse also saying that we'll organise a commercial flight for you back home, back to Sydney. Now, because I work for Virgin and we get the freebie flights, my mentality was, it's all good, I'll sort it out myself, I'll get home, no worries. Now, I don't know, because I didn't pursue that any further, I don't know if that flight is included as part of your medical treatment costs to get you back home. I assume it's not, but you know, the Flying Doctors were free, so maybe this side of it's free as well. I don't know. If someone's been in that experience before, pop your comments below. Maybe you've got an answer for us as well. Having said all that, now that I'm back home, the bike's secure, I'm back home, I'm about to be operated on, there's still one very important question to ask, and that is, how do I get my bike back home? Okay, let's talk about how to get your bike back home. Now, there are many variables to this. Are you riding solo? Are you in a group? Do you have a support vehicle, etc., etc.? Now, because I ride solo and this video is based on my experience of a solo trip, so everything I say is going to be down the path of a solo rider. For anyone that's got experience in crashing far away from home and you've got some more information that I don't provide here, just pop your answers in the comments below so we can all read and learn from it. Now, when it comes to getting your bike back home, there are two very important things to consider. If you have to abandon your bike in the middle of nowhere, and then get to medical help, that's the first part. You need to secure your bike and your belongings and your possessions. The second part then is, how do you get your bike home from where you've secured it? So I'll talk about the first bit, leaving your bike safe and secure. Let's start with the worst case scenario, and that is you're in remote Australia. The first thing I would do is then call the police or a roadhouse or the closest roadhouse or pub and see if you can get them to organise, or they would more than likely know someone who can recover and retrieve your bike and your belongings. Now, I'd like to think that we live in a pretty good world where people wouldn't damage your gear or nick it or anything like that. But even Mick, when he stopped and was helping me out, one of the things he said, you get yourself to hospital and I'll sort your bike and gear out. You don't want to leave it out here. And that really sort of took me back a bit, because I thought, I thought the country's a good place. There's good people out here, and there are, but unfortunately there's some bad people as well. Mick told me a story that he had to leave his tractor due to a flat tyre. He had to leave it in the paddock for a couple of days. When he came back, the diesel tank had been completely drained and the turbo had been stolen as well. So take it from a local again. You need to secure your bike and your possessions. So call the police, a roadhouse or a pub. Hopefully they can get access to your bike as quick as they can and then secure it. Now, I was lucky because I was in regional Australia, which is what I said before. There's a massive difference between remote and regional. So I had a passerby, stopped straight away. Mick stayed behind and helped the farmer recover my bike and put it in the shed. So having my bike safe and secure, that was a weight off my shoulders, like I said, and I could focus on getting the help that I needed as well. Once you've done that, you're now back home, you're on the road to recovery. How do you get your bike back home? Right, so there's a few options. First up, call your insurance company. They'll take care of the lot. Easy peasy. Couldn't get any easier than that. If you don't have comprehensive insurance, then the second thing you can do, if you've got membership to a recovery program, like Recover My Ride, give them a call and then they'll take care of it as well. Now, Mark from Throttle Riding Adventures, he spoke to the lady that runs Recover My Ride and he's got a great video of information you might find helpful. I'll leave the link in the description below. Okay, so the third thing is to get your bike trucked home. Now, that's a fairly straightforward process. It can get expensive. Luckily, Mick was there, who incredibly organised a crate, packed it all up, drove it to the truck depot. So the truck depot basically just had to get it from the Adelaide depot to the Sydney depot, which cost $550. And then I just hired a trailer and picked it up from the Sydney depot. If you need someone on the other end, or if you get the trucking company to do all of that for you, then yeah, it's going to get a lot more expensive real quick. Okay, so when you think about trucking your bike back home, it's not as bad as what you think it is, because trucks crisscross this continent. Every highway, every back road, everywhere. Literally, there's trucks going in every direction. And when I told my wife I needed to get it trucked home, she freaked out and thought, oh, my bike's lost in the abyss of the outback. I said, look, just calm down. It's not as bad as what you think it is. And to prove the point here, I crashed just near Port Augusta. So if we use Port Augusta as the central point here, I'll overlay it with the main roads in Australia. All roads lead to Rome, but I'm going to say that all roads lead to Port Augusta. So I was very lucky again in that respect, that where I had crashed was a really good spot to crash from a trucking side of things. And also, when I was growing up, I always remember seeing stickers on the back of the truck that said, "Without trucks, Australia stops." Now, if you remember those stickers or signs, you know that's so very true. So when you think of trucking your bike back home, it's a pretty straightforward thing. Now, the fourth option is to go get it yourself. Now, when I told my brother and a mate about the crash and where the bike was, within an instant, they were onto it straight away. They just said, "I'll come with you." Bros trip. It's a great excuse to get out on the road with some mates and have a bit of a bros trip. Okay, there is a fifth option that I was thinking about, and this really depends if the planets are in alignment. Here in Australia, we've got this thing called relocations. Now, there's a couple of companies out there, transfercar.com.au and also iMover.com.au. I think I'll put the websites on the screen there. And they relocate cars all over Australia. Mostly, 99% of the time, you're relocating camper vans, motorhomes, four-wheel drives and small cars as well. So they're useless when it comes to recovering your motorbike. But the reason I say that is because every now and again, they also have small trucks to be relocated as well. Now, I guess, so when I said things are in the planets have got to be in alignment for this to work, those trucks aren't always available. And if they are available, is it from the place that you need it to get to where you need it, to where it needs to go? So And then you've got to factor in your airfare to get across there as well, which makes it easier for me working for an airline. But like I said, it's not for everyone, but I was just trying to think outside of the box on another alternative, how to get the bike back home, and a fun way to do it as well, because I have relocated a brand new four-wheel drive camper with Dad from Adelaide across the Nullarbor to Perth, and it was $1 a day. We did this awesome trip across the Nullarbor for $6, and we had some fuel that's included in the price as well. So if the companies are desperate for that vehicle to get there, they even put a small percentage of fuel in as well. So that's another option that you can think of as well. Okay, so as you can see, there are a number of options to get your bike back home that I can think of. Again, there's probably more out there. If you've got any other ideas, just pop them in the comments below. Like I said, probably the biggest thing you need to do is secure your bike and your possessions immediately after the crash. That's going to be the tricky side of it as well. It's been a long video so far. We've only got a few more things to talk about, so thanks for sticking around this far. We'll chat about those other things and we'll wrap up this video. Okay, so I said I'd come back to talking about EPIRBs later on in the video. Now here's a fun fact with EPIRBs. They run on a 406 Hertz frequency, which is the exact same frequency that a electronic location transmitter, an ELT, we as cabin crew are trained to use in a plane crash or in a ditching as well. So if they're good enough for a commercial aircraft, then they're certainly good enough for us as adventure riders as well. Now, before the trip started, I sent my EPIRB away for servicing to get a battery replacement. They only last for 5 years. And while you send it away, they also check the seals and the circuitry as well. Now, it's good that you've got an EPIRB, but you need to register it with AMSA, the Australian Maritime Safety Authority. In there, you can register your EPIRB and also your personal details, who you are, your allergies, your height, your weight, all that sort of information, as well as your trip information and your bike information. So you can say that I'm going to go start at this point, and by this here on this date, I should be here. Also, you can update your details of the vehicle. So I ride an Aprilia Capanord 1200, 2014 model, blah, blah, blah. So that if you set it off, AMSA will go, fucking Costa's crashed his Aprilia again. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is your CTP insurance. It's a bit of a grey area that I wasn't aware of. So your CTP covers the costs of injuries that you may cause to other people and also yourself. Now, the grey area is if you're involved in a single vehicle at fault accident outside of the state that your vehicle's registered in, it's a bit of a grey area and your costs aren't covered. So when I rang up my Aprilia is registered in New South Wales. When I rang up my New South Wales CTP insurance, they said, oh, we can't do anything here. You crashed overseas. You crashed interstate. It was a single vehicle at fault. Oh, no, we don't want anything to do with this. They said, call South Australian CTP insurance, which I did. I told them the story and they said, oh, no, that's a New South Wales thing. So backwards and forwards, I went on a bit of a cat and mouse thing to try and figure out what's the go. And they said, no, there's nothing that either of them can do. I then got a bill from South Australian Health for $1,300 when I went to the Royal Adelaide Hospital. And when I saw that bill, I thought, shit, that's just from Adelaide Hospital. Whatever happened to Bullaroo Hospital, Port Pirie Hospital, Adelaide, and then also the one in Sydney that I was going to go to. I thought, wow, this is going to get astronomical real quick. So when I spoke to the CTP, you can understand my frustration. So I then said to the lady, if I rob a bank and trip over the gutter and then I need to go to hospital, Medicare will cover that. Yet I pay all my insurances on the bike, yet I'm not covered for anything. She then said, look, we know this is a grey area. In a goodwill gesture, we'll put it through as Medicare. So that bill that I got from South Australia Health, she then put that through as Medicare, which I'm very grateful for, but something you may find yourself in the same situation that they can help you out doing the same as well. As frustrating as that is, it's also frustrating that for insurance purposes, you need to get a police report. Now, the police report says that you need to file that. Now, even though I crashed in South Australia, I submitted the police report when I got back home to Sydney, which is totally fine. But it does say that you need to submit a police report. You need to submit a claim on your insurance with a police report number within 28 days of the accident. Now, in my situation where you had to try and get from the crash scene to some help in the hospital, then you hopped between hospital and hospital to get the medical help that you needed, then to fly back home to Sydney, get operated on, have the follow-up appointments, then also think about how do I get my bike. When you think of all of that, are you going to think about, oh yeah, I need to put my police report in? So I kind of feel like it's a bit of a rigged system against us. Rant over, that's all I'll say about it, but the message here is try and get your police report in straight away. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the video. Thanks for sticking around this long. It's getting pretty long. I didn't realise it was going to be this long, but as you can tell, there's a fair bit of information and just some stories that I want to share with you as well. So having said that, I don't want to end this video on a bad note as well, because there was some, as bad as the crash was, I'm healing well. You can see the scar there. It's not as bad as what I thought it was going to be. But there's some really funny stories that I want to share, and I'll be able to retell them over and over again. So remember at the start of the video, I said, remember to get the contact numbers of everyone the phone numbers of everyone you've had contact with, which helps with logistics and trying to get your bike back home, etc. But it's also good manners to update those people as well. I messaged Pete to say, "G'day Pete, it's Costa, the motorcyclist that you helped. I'm on the road to recovery, I'm doing well, the bike's almost fixed and all is good. I just wanted to say thanks." He was incredibly grateful to hear from him, because he always thought, oh yeah, whatever happened to Costa? And not only did he ask about my recovery, but also how I was getting along getting the bike fixed. So in a way, it was closure for him as well, considering that he helped me out so much. And he was equally grateful for the update as I was for his help. Now, coming back to Mick, what a bloody legend Mick is. If it wasn't for Mick, the bike's probably going to be still out by Bullaroo, wherever it is. So eternally grateful for Mick. But one of the highlights as well is that we've spoken a fair bit on the phone since the crash, and the conversation has gone from getting the bike sorted to just life in general. Now, what a perfect person to talk to about life in regional South Australia, that a part of Australia that I know nothing about. And likewise for him, he was asking me questions about life in Sydney, which he knows nothing about. So in a way, it was a really good connection between city life and country life. And that was a really good takeaway, and to connect with someone outside of your bubble. Now, I'm sure you've heard this before, that country people are really good people. Now, I will forever back that up till from the highest mountain. I will scream that from the tallest mountain and say country people are the best people. And I will go as far, and if I was to sum it up, how my experience with all Pete, Mick, Lyle and Craig and all that, if I was to sum all that up in one sentence, I'd say it like, this is how I'd put it to you. I rode halfway across Australia to crash in front of a mate's place. There you go. They were like mates. What they did for me was something that your mates would do. It's just, yep, that's all I'll say. Absolutely beautiful people. Okay, so one of the other highlights of the trip is my trip in the Flying Doctors. So I never ever thought I'd ever use the services of the Flying Doctors, but it turns out to be a bit of a highlight, a story that I'll tell forever and ever, but also a great way to see just how amazing they truly are. They are there in the background waiting to help you out if you need it. So hopefully, knock on wood, we never do, but how awesome are the RFDS? And lastly, one of the best parts of this whole experience, not that I recommend you hurt yourself to achieve this, but is spending time with my kids. I had 3 months off work to spend every day with the kids. They loved me being here. I loved being at home, and it was just fantastic. Again, I don't recommend you hurt yourself to get the time off work, but that was an unexpected highlight as well. And when I did have to go to work, I was getting ready and I put my uniform on to go to work, and my son said, "Oh, are you going to work?" And he kicked the kitchen chair and had a bit of a sooky face, and I was like, "Don't worry, mate, I'm Devo too." Okay, so that wraps up this video. Thanks for sticking around so long. I didn't expect it to be this long, but there's 2 things that I really want you to take away from this video. If you've got any experience crashing far away from home or anything, pop your experience in the comments below so we can all learn. And lastly, the most important thing is, If you can, please contribute to and donate to the RFDS. Thanks.